Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Reflections. Today, I want to ask you how you handle your trials and all the obstacles that you go through in your life. So, I've been thinking a lot lately about that. I'm rereading through, the Old Testament, and just went through Exodus and the whole, everybody leaving Egypt and Pharaoh and Moses and all the things. And it also kind of goes hand in hand with a lot of things I'm seeing in my life right now. And I'm just looking at how we handle things, and if we take each one of our trials and tribulations and experiences, and if we are self-aware enough to examine each one and to stay in relationship with God well enough while we're in it to make the right turn. Because I feel like everything that we go through is an opportunity from God to turn in a certain direction. So what he would prefer, obviously, is that we turn toward him, right? He doesn't let us go through all of these bad things or hard things just for fun, and they're not just, because they're for a purpose. And the purpose is always, God's purpose is always for you to get to him. It's not for anything else. He doesn't want you going sideways or backwards or anything else. So each thing, I think, is an opportunity to obviously bring you closer to him. I think how we handle all of that and how we look at that and how we stay in relationship with him is extremely important through that, because if you don't, you end up going backwards. You end up getting a little bit harder and a little bit harder and a little bit harder in your heart every single time. And I was just reading through, with Moses and Pharaoh and the Exodus and everything, and I'm just looking at all of the plagues, right? And all of the opportunities that God gave Pharaoh. And it's funny because even at times after, the thing starts happening, he says to Moses and Aaron, just, petition your God, I've sinned, I'm sorry, make it stop and I'll let your people go. And Moses prays to God and God does it. God stops it, literally stops it. And then he hardens his heart and doesn't let them go. And then it's okay, well, we'll go and we'll do a little bit worse plague. And we'll do another plague and another plague and another plague and another plague. And it's this whole entire cycle, this whole time, 10 times, right? Until, we've got babies dying and firstborns dying, which is the worst, right? We would all agree. And Pharaoh, I think, probably agreed. And it's what does that say about, Pharaoh's relationship? Because they worshipped all these different gods in Egypt, right? They had all these, frog gods and fish gods and all these crazy things. And it's you could see him say, I'm going to recognize that, I've sinned and this is wrong and your God is righteous and all of these things. But then he's no, I'm not doing it and I'm not doing it. And it's funny. I love that God actually, after he asks him to stop and says that, God actually stops it. That's just so interesting to me. But it's God is even, I feel slightly giving him a chance to say yeah, listen, I can hear you. I'm real. I'm here. But he wants more from him. He wants more. He wants relationship. He doesn't want Pharaoh. It's not about letting them go. It's not about doing the thing. It's about his heart, right? That's the reason he doesn't let him go. He just changes his mind. He's no, I don't want to give any of my heart or any of me or I don't want my stuff going away. I don't want my slaves going away. I don't want to give anything to God. I'm not giving this to God. I can recognize that I'm sinning and that I'm doing wrong and you're righteous, but I'm not giving you my stuff, God. That's literally what he's saying, really. And I just see that in us. I see that in our lives. I see that in every little thing we go through. And you wonder through each one of those plagues, if Pharaoh realized what was happening to him and where it was going to end up. And I feel he didn't. And I think it's super significant that there was 10. And I'm sure there were many, many, many more in his life other than those 10 plagues. But we go through little tiny things sometimes. Sometimes they're not huge, big explosions like a divorce or losing a job or someone dying. Sometimes they're just little discomforts. And we don't take them seriously and we don't look at them and we don't focus and zero in on God. We just think like, okay, I got to get through this thing. How do I do it? What do I have to do? What things do I have to prepare? Who do I have to call? Blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, oh, maybe at the end we'll pray, or we'll say, oh, hey, friend, will you pray for me? We don't go through anything with God in the front. We don't say, okay, well, I'm not doing anything until I pray. Like, this bad thing has happened, and I'm going to pray about it first, and before I go and make all the calls and do all the applications and everything else. We make God like, the backup. And I think when we do those things and we live that way and it doesn't work out, especially because, again, God's trying to get our attention, then we end up a little bit harder and a little bit harder and a little bit harder. And then something big happens, and then we're really not prepared because our relationship with God sucks at that point. We're not investing in it. We're not putting him first. If you're not putting him first in the trials, you're probably certainly not putting him first in the easy times, because that's just unfortunately how humans work. We use him as a vending machine. And then something big happens and you're just not ready. And then you're totally just, and then when it really doesn't work out that time, then you're really hard. And there's just so much danger in that. And it super scares me for people, because I think you get to a point where like a couple big things happen and then you're just like, you're just dead inside. And it's a scary thing, because I don't think those people know how to get back. I think they don't even want to. They don't even care. It's just like, meh, whatever. And that's scary. That's past lukewarm. That's I'm not even there anymore. And I think that's a super scary thing, because God says in here, he will harden it. He will solidify it. He will send the strong delusion to the people who don't choose already, and he knows they're not going to. I don't ever want to be in a place like that, where I can't feel God anymore, and I can't feel conviction, and I can't feel love, and I can't feel those things, and I'm not even caring enough to seek him. So, I mean, that's kind of just what I want to reflect on is when you're going through anything, even if it's people make fun of the little prayers, right? Where you're like, oh, I'm going somewhere and I just need I don't know, a good parking spot so I'm not late, and I'll pray about the parking spot. Something stupid like that, people will be like, oh, that's dumb. It's no, that's amazing, because you think of God on every instance of your life. That's how it should be. That's how it should be. You should pray that God gives you enough hot water for your shower. You should be so in tune with God that it's all about him, and everything else is just this stuff passing you by. And if that's how it is, then when all these things happen, your relationship will grow, because it'll be like that best friend or that really good spouse. They say, if you have a great close marriage and close relationship, then you guys can get through anything, because when bad things happen, you draw closer instead of further. It's the same exact concept. If you lean into God and you crawl into his lap when these bad things happen and you just dive into him, it will get stronger and it will get better. And then the more the bad things happen, the easier it is. So just think about that, guys, I guess. Reflect on that in your life and figure out where you are on the scale, because we're all somewhere in this scale of life of this many trials and this many trials and this many trials. And just try to examine where your heart is in that, and how you keep God in it. Is God the last resort? Is he the first resort? Is he in the middle somewhere? Or do you rely on your friends to do all the praying for you? Where are you at with that? And if it's not God first, and I can't even function until I talk to God first, then you should probably really, 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 really try to change that. Get in your word, pray, get in relationship with him a lot better, because you don't want to end up, you're not going to know what's happening. You're just going to end up dead inside. And that is super, super, super not a place you want to be. So I love you guys. Please share this video, because I think we all need to be really, really self-aware of how we handle all these things. And I know everybody's going through a lot of stuff right now, and everybody's really oppressed and under all these fears and all these things. So please share this so that we can all just look at ourselves and really really stop looking at ourselves actually and look more at God. So I love you guys, and God loves you. Have a great week.